We welcome you back to the Eagles pregame show brought to you by SeatGeek here on Philly Sports. Ben Goldstein, Sam Heine, and a huge one tonight at Lincoln Financial Field. It's Sunday Night Football. The 7-2 Eagles. It's the 6-3 Lions, and a huge matchup in South Philadelphia. Sam, how are we doing tonight?
Oh man, I'm a little nervous, not gonna lie, but I'm really excited. You know what they say, waiting all day for Sunday night, and this is going to be a good one. Really excited for it to get kicked off, but can't say I'm not a little bit nervous.
A lot of nerves flowing through right now, and it's like a weird feeling because football started so early this morning, and now we're almost looking at 12 hours of football today. It's been a lot of football, and finally we're here, and it's a cold night at the Link, and it's going to be exciting, but a lot of nerves. I keep hearing this is like the 49ers game from 2023 where the Eagles have to win. It's a huge opponent. Are you getting any sort of those vibes?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's very similar. You know, the 49ers came in and they had a lot of revenge on their mind in 2023, and they came in and they kicked the Eagles' butts that day. And that was the game that really turned around the 2023 season. You know, everyone always remembers how that season ended. Not a lot of people remember the Eagles started that season 10-1. And then the 49ers came in, really exposed a lot of the problems that the Eagles were having that season. A lot similar to this season, with some ugly wins that the Eagles were having early in that season. And yeah, I think it's very similar from the fact the Lions have a lot of revenge on their mind. They think that they should have been in the Super Bowl last year. They think that at least they should have been in the NFC Championship game last year if it wasn't for the injuries. So yeah, they definitely think that this is a game that's been waiting to happen for a year and a half, and they're really excited to come and try to knock off the defending champs. So we'll see if they can.
We'll see if they can. And if this game comes down to a field goal tonight, and I just want to talk about this here early, it is really windy here in the Philadelphia area. So this is what we're looking at down at the link. This is from Fox 29. So you got wind in the far side of how we're looking at it, so kind of towards the Citizens Bank Park side, and on the other side, it's not windy. So kind of interesting how really a lot of times it doesn't matter, like, oh, we're going this way, oh, we off the kickoff or whatever, but it could really matter tonight, which way we're starting.
Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest thing is going to be you want to win that coin toss, so that way you can kick into the side that doesn't have wind going into the fourth quarter. Because, like you said, I think this is going to be a really close game. A lot of scenarios for this game playing out is that this is going to be a one-score game down to the end. So it definitely could be a big factor tonight in the kicking game and also in the passing game. Last week we kind of saw the weather. A lot of people thought had an effect on how both offenses played. So yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Speaking of the offense and the passing, it's been the topic of conversation throughout the week. So why not just get right into it? Last week in Green Bay, the Eagles, yes, they did win, but the offense was not good at all. In the first half, following the opening 16-play, 77-yard drive by the Eagles where Jalen Hurts fumbled at the end of, the Eagles had drives of 3 plays, 3 yards, punt. 3 plays, 8 yards, punt. 5 plays, 7 yards, punt. 4 plays, 6 yards, turnover on downs, end of half.
Yeah.
They started off the third quarter well, got the touchdown, got the field goal, and then that was it on the offensive side. The running game was back to its poor form. Saquon Barkley had 6 rushes for 28 yards in the first quarter, and then the rest of the game, 16 for 32. He had a 150-yard game against the Giants before the bye, hoping that would spark something. Nothing. The Eagles are getting some help, though. We'll talk about the offensive line, which is getting healthy. And then the real big story that everyone's rightly been talking about, Jalen Hurts, 15 for 26, 183 yards. Yes, he had a touchdown pass, but he also had the fumble. Inaccurate, uncomfortable, poor decision-making, missed open guys. A.J. Brown, 2 receptions, 13 yards. They had 10 points. This was one of the worst offensive performances we have seen from this Eagles group. Is it just because the offensive line was banged up? Like, what was going wrong? Was it the weather? Was the Packers defense just this good? Or is this who the Eagles are?
Yeah, I think, starting with the running game, I think the biggest problem all year has honestly been the offensive line. I mean, if you look at that game last week, obviously they had Brett Toth in there at center. Very good to have Cam back this week. So, hopefully everyone will be healthy and we can actually have the offensive line that won the Super Bowl all back together and all healthy. But, you look at even guys who were starters, who were big name starters. I mean, Jordan Mailata was horrible last week, like horrible in pass protection and run blocking. I mean, that one play that stands out is obviously the one where he fell in Saquon Barkley's hole. I think some of the talk has been about how Saquon lost a step, and there are numbers to indicate that he has just a little bit, but even a little bit diminished Saquon Barkley is still one of the best running backs in the league. So I do think that the offensive line is a big reason to blame for the running game struggles, but I also think a big reason is just defenses are selling out to stop the run against this team. You look at the way that these teams are playing them, there's a lot of times we're going deep. There's a lot of one-on-one, and we saw that with the receivers when they started implementing more play action, is because these defenses are just loading up to stop Saquon Barkley because they honestly do not fear the passing game, and we haven't really given them a reason to fear it. So now moving on to the passing game, yeah, Jalen was not good last week. I mean, you said it. The inaccuracy, which I will give it to him, is very uncharacteristic for him. For all the things that people struggle with Jalen and are critical of with Jalen, inaccuracy is not one of them. I think it was just an off night from that standpoint. But I think one of the things that happened last week was, he got really, really conservative after that fumble. He's somebody who has really, really done a great job of keeping turnovers to a minimum. He was somebody who led the league in turnovers in 2023 and 2024. So I think last week he got spooked a little bit by turning the ball over and was extra cautious to not really take any chances. But that's also something that he has struggled with throughout his career, is that he sometimes struggles to pull the trigger. And I think last week it was really one of those times where, he was extra cautious, really struggling to pull the trigger. There was one clip going viral of A.J. Brown running wide open over the middle of the field, like just wide open, no one even near him. He doesn't throw him the football for whatever reason. So, I think the inaccuracy combined with Jalen just having one of those days where he's holding onto the ball too long will really, hurt this offense. Lucky enough, they still won the game. And this is a classic game for the people who look on the outside and, want to say that Jalen's not even a top 10 quarterback because, he has all his talent around him. And the defense, they only scored 10 points, but defense held them to 7. So we're very lucky for that. But obviously, the Eagles offense is going to have to turn it around this week if they're going to want to win against this high-powered Lions offense. And, I think what it comes down to with this offense and passing game, I guess you could say, is just that they're inconsistent. I mean, over the last 3 years, we've seen it. They're super inconsistent. Jalen has been inconsistent. Unfortunately, the running game has now become inconsistent. But, we just need them to play their best when the big games come, and hopefully that's one of those tonight.
Hopefully that is what it is tonight. Eagles able to turn it around. And huge, Cam Jurgens is back at center after missing basically 2.5 games. And Lane Johnson as well was out for the majority of the game last week, had an ankle injury. It was really scary when it happened, and somehow he comes back out. And for the last couple drives, just amazing how he's just able to go back out there. Is that what the Eagles are missing? Like, could this really be what it is for the running game? Because week 1, when we saw the offensive line full band out there, it still wasn't great. Is this something that could go into the Eagles' favor with the running game specifically? We'll talk about passing game go more in depth when we get to these comments over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. I think something when you look look back to the beginning of the season, Landon Dickerson was playing hurt. He got injured in training camp. A lot of people thought, at that open practice, a lot of people thought he was going to miss time, possibly even need surgery. And then he was saying, no, I'll be ready for week 1. And I think it was very obvious that he was playing through an injury. A lot of guys, even Jason Kelsey came on WIP early in the season and flat out said, Landon Dickerson is not playing up to his standard. He's playing hurt, he's playing through an injury, and you got to commend him for that. But he is not playing up to his standard. Now, recently, you have all these analysts, Brian Baldinger, specifically, who said Landon looks like old Landon. Whatever that injury was, the bye week really helped him out. Obviously, the Giants, Thursday night into that 10-game stretch or 10 days off stretch really helped him get healthy. So, I think definitely that is something that can really help the running game out if we can get all 5 of these offensive linemen to just be healthy together, have that continuity. And I think also something that doesn't really get talked about a lot. Last year everyone was like, well, Saquon's not going to be able to recreate his yards and carries and all that because of how many he had last year. But no one talked about the effect it was going to have on the offensive line. We've seen it so far. Landon got hurt. Cam got hurt. Jordan Mailata's not playing as well. Lane is Hall of Famer. No matter what, he's going to be playing really well. But this offensive line is definitely, I think, showing some wear and tear from last year as well. So, hopefully coming off this bye week, everybody getting healthy, they can, really get it together and be able to play their best on the stretch.
All right. Here are the clips of AJ Brown on Twitch earlier this week. If you probably all saw the story, but you may not have really seen the clips. So we have all 4 for you right here.
Hey, but look, everything been good though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Everything been straight. You know what I'm saying? Mental good, kids good, you know what I'm saying? Wife good, everything?
Yeah, I mean, no.
Where
have you been?
No, I'm just checking up. Like, you my dog. Like, I still got, you know what I'm saying? I got to check up, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Like family good, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything else, no.
Man, everything gonna click, bro. Chat, chill, look. Everything gonna click, bro. Trust me.
Shit show.
I promise you, you might get 200, and I ain't even trolling.
Hey. If you got me on fantasy, man, get rid of me.
Hey, spoiler alert, nigga. Didn't you hear me? Keep it to yourself.
No.
Oh, no, you're not. Oh, you're stupid. Let's show him some love.
Man, let's do it.
Good things happen when you get touched and shit. Oh.
I'll take it. All right, I'll take it. Come on.
Whoa.
Pause. Your cheeks. All right, bro. Nope, outside. Nope. Got it. Come on, we should.
Let's go from 11 some love. Let's see how that goes. What's up, Joe? Where daddy at? Oh, right there.
No!
Touchdown. Yeah.
Oh my God, bro. Man, that boy dancing his ass off.
Daddy oh!
Hey!
Daddy had 9 for 168. 2 tub.
Whoa.
Daddy.
Yeah, you see it.
Hi, Daddy.
Well, that gotta be cool as hell, bro. Like, you realize, bro, like your son seeing you like on a game, bro. Like, that's actually lit, bro.
I'm telling you, bro. That's the only highlight of the damn football I've been living right now.
Hey, man, look. Sunday chats.
All right, so he calls the Eagles' offense a bleep show. If you have him on fantasy, to drop him, he gives himself some love. It gives him the touchdown. And it's like good things happen when you give 11 the ball. And then his only good stats are on a video game. What do you make of this? There's so many different opinions. Like people agree, don't agree. It's right, wrong. Where do you stand?
Yeah, so I think, first things first, I am getting very, very, very frustrated, as an Eagles fan with AJ Brown. It's one thing to do all this on social media and on Twitch or whatever, like if they're losing. If the Eagles were 3-8 or, whatever it is, and it's a really bad season, then I could see him, coming out and with all these things that he's been doing. But you just won the Super Bowl. Your team is 7-2, coming off of one of the biggest wins, regular season wins of the last 3 years, probably. Going to Green Bay and winning that game was huge. And because you're not getting the ball, and he tries to make it as if he's only doing this because he wants the team to win. It's not the truth, because if it was only for the team to win, then he would be doing this, one, behind closed doors, and two, the team is winning. It's not like he's not getting the ball and the team's losing. The best game that the offense has had is when A.J. Brown didn't even play, and obviously it's against the Giants, but it's the truth. So I think, first and foremost, I think that, I'm just getting very frustrated with him because, it's very obvious to me, at least, that I think he probably is not going to be an Eagle next year, just from the fact that he's just constantly putting this out there, and Jeffrey Lurie had to go, and, Jeffrey Lurie had to go and talk to him, and, they had a meeting and all that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, he is right, he doesn't get the ball. Jalen doesn't give him opportunities to get the ball. If you look back to 2022 of A.J. Brown's highlights, so many of his big plays was just Jalen giving him a chance to go make a play on the ball. When you go back to that Tennessee game, when obviously A.J. wanted to have a big game against his former team, and Jalen was just lobbing it up there, and A.J. was coming down with it. I mean, that Pittsburgh game, when he had 3 touchdowns, he's jumping over 2 defenders coming down and getting the ball. Even the first game against the Lions, I saw a lot of people posting that on Twitter this week. I mean, Jalen is giving him chances to go up, make a play, and come down with the football. I mean, I remember in that 2022 season, they talked about it's not a 50-50 ball when you throw to A.J. Brown. It's a 90-10 ball. It's an 80-20 ball, because he's coming down with it that much, so much more of the time. So, and, the offense also is not playing up to its standard. It's not playing the best. So, on one hand, he is right, but I also think that he's creating a ton of unnecessary distractions for the team. And if he wants to have these feelings, in the house, go right ahead. Tell the coordinators, tell the quarterback, complain all you want. But to do it publicly 3 weeks after 3 wins or maybe the first one wasn't after a win. Maybe it was. I can't remember. But I know the last 2 were definitely after wins. It's just a terrible look. It is just an absolute terrible look. And the biggest thing, before I, let you give your thoughts, the last thing that I'm getting frustrated with is he never takes any accountability on himself. None of this is I have to be better. None of this is I have to get more open. None of this is I have to talk to Jalen. None of this is I have to come back down that ball on the 4th down. None of this is, because there are stats out there, advanced stats that show that he has lost a step. He's not as fast as he once was. You can see it. If you look back at these highlights, like I said, I was watching earlier this week, you look back at these highlights, it's not the same player. And I'm not saying that he is still not a great receiver or that he can't get back to that. But, I mean, he's had a ton of leg injuries. He's had hamstring injuries. He's had knee injuries. He had his knee drained last playoff before every game. Like, he doesn't take any accountability on himself and just blames everybody else. So, that's something that I would like to see him do differently as well, is, take some accountability. And even if he doesn't believe it, at least go out and say it.
I think that comes with a lot of media training, along with, you can believe one thing, but what you say publicly is another. Like, coaches will be there like, they take accountability for everything. Like, you look last week at the 4th and 6 call, and Nick Sirianni, right after the game, we found out later that it was A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts that kind of came up with that. But, Nick Sirianni after the game, I take accountability, blah, 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 blah. This is just how star wide receivers are. They're divas. Terrell Owens is like this. Randy Moss, so many other guys have nothing like this, where you're going on a Twitch stream with a streamer that I learned for the first time on Tuesday. I never knew who this guy was. But it's hard to blame A.J. Brown. I mean, what he's saying is true. He should be getting the ball. The offense is better when he's getting the ball. However, you said it very well. You look at the advanced stats, he's lost a step, and he's never really putting it on himself at all, which comes with a lot of the media training and PR stuff. But it's a bad look. But is he wrong? The Eagles' offense doesn't look good. It's hard. There's so many different ways that you can look at it. And there's so many pros and cons to both. You mentioned the Jeffrey Lurie thing. A.J. Brown promised the Eagles owner that he would keep his frustrations off of social media, which should never even gotten to this. And who do you put this on?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete double-edged sword because, like you said, he's right in what he's saying. And I mean, even if you look back at the passing stats over these last couple of years, I mean, they're 25th in the league this year, 29th in the league last year. Like, that's not good enough. I mean, Devontae Smith is having a Pro Bowl year, best year of his career, and we all know how talented he is. A.J. Brown, we all know how talented he is, even if I just said that it seems like he might be, the injuries might have caught up to him a tiny bit. Like, he's still a great player, and we've seen it. I mean, that game against Minnesota, he was dominant. But, like, the fact that we're way too talented of an offense, passing wise, to have. I mean, if you look at who around them is in the passing staff, it's the Tennessee Titans, the Vegas Raiders. Come on. So I get where he's coming from, but yeah, we both said it. He can't be putting it out into the media. But yeah, I think it definitely comes down to. I think it's good that Laurie had to talk to him because this is another team that can win the Super Bowl. I mean, we saw it last year. Everybody was frustrated with how the passing offense looked last year, and in the two biggest games, it showed up and they won the Super Bowl. That can easily happen again. The defense seems like it's rounding the shape, and I commend Laurie for really putting an end to it and saying, hey, look, if you're frustrated, that's fine, but you cannot be putting this on social media because eventually it's going to create a divide in the locker room. I mean, they won the Super Bowl with this being a problem last year. Brendan Graham came out and literally said it on WIP that 1 and 11 aren't getting along and that they need to figure it out because this team's way too talented to ruin a season because of this. So, unfortunately, I think that this is something that it's been going on for 3 years. I mean, if you go back to 2023, AJ was hurt in the playoff game, but he didn't travel to Tampa on the team plane. There's so many tea leaf reading that, and now it's not even tea leaf, it's all out in our face. And I feel like every time I open Twitter, it's another thing that's going on where it seems like it's going to be a breakup soon. But for the moment, they just got to work through it. And, maybe, hopefully, they can get it figured out like they did last year because this team is definitely good enough and talented enough to go on another Super Bowl run. And I would really hate for this to derail a potentially great season.
Yep, multiple offensive players as well. This came out this morning. Have quote grown frustrated with that number one quarterback Jalen Hurts and his approach against zone coverage this season. People in the Eagles building are telling our good friend, I use friend very lightly, Dan Arusini from The Athletic, who just seems to have some sort of anti-Philadelphia agenda going on this season. Quote, they believe he's become hesitant in tight windows, leading on checkdowns or scrambles instead of trusting what's open downfield. And this goes back to the A.J. Brown problem where, if he's not open, he's open. Oh, and his thing is, always open, AO. Jalen's just a conservative guy, and that's what's going to come from this. But if, now you're getting some sort of thing in the locker room with this now.
Yeah.
And that's where it really becomes an issue because we've seen it translated out on the field.
Yeah. And, I think funny enough, the Eagles posted a video, they post the, kind of like Hard Knocks type videos where they show people on the sidelines and, some players are mic'd up, and one of the players that was mic'd up was Devontae Smith. And, he basically said, just throw the bleeping ball. And, zone coverage is something that Jalen Hurts has struggled with his whole career. He's a way better quarterback against man. And, funny enough, A.J. Brown is also a way better receiver against man. But, it can become concerning if more players on the team, except for just A.J. Brown, are becoming frustrated with Jalen and the passing offense. I think a lot of people are very quick to blame Kevin Patullo because he's the new guy. And something that I've struggled with is trying to figure out how much is Jalen to blame, how much is Patullo to blame. And, I think that no one really even gave Patullo a chance. The first game, the passing offense didn't look good, or the offense didn't look great as a whole. And Kevin Patullo is the worst person on the planet after one game, and then people can never change their minds. And that's not even to say that I think he's done a great job this year, because honestly, I don't. But, I think that these what Diana Rossini reported is that, some players obviously if they think that there's plays to be made and Jalen's not making them, then the offense must be working decently well. The players, there's nothing that said that the players are getting, frustrated because they weren't getting open or not being schemed open. It's that he's not throwing them the ball. And, this is something that he's struggled with his whole career. He's always the last or the second to last quarterback in time to throw. And zone coverage has always been something he's really struggled against. He kills man coverage. And, it's obviously become well known in the league that you can't play man coverage against him or Devontae or AJ, obviously. But, if more players start to feel this way, and, some people are going to say, well, no, that's just AJ coming out. I doubt that it's just AJ that feels this way. So, yeah, it's definitely not good that these things are coming out of the locker room. And, I get their frustration because, like I said, there's in no world that in back-to-back years this team should be in the high 20s in passing offense. There's just no way it should be. So, yeah, he's got to let it fly a little bit more.
Here is that Devontae Smith video that Sam was referencing, was able to pull it up nice and quick here. So here is the 12-second clip of Devontae Smith voicing his frustrations after his touchdown catch against Green Bay.
Come back. Great shot. I stand there.
So it's a quick little interaction with a couple of guys, but still holds some power.
Yeah, and I think when I first saw that video, I kind of thought, oh, he's saying like, throw me the ball, I'm going to make a play. Like, keep throwing me the ball, I'm going to keep making plays. But now with this report coming out, it's possible that there could be a different meaning there. And I think one of the biggest things with Jalen that he is such a positive of his is while he did have to fumble last week, he doesn't really turn the ball over anymore. It's amazing. And I think that's a huge reason why the Eagles win all these games is because they win the turnover battle so frequently. Because, even if you're just getting one turnover, normally that's enough to win the turnover battle. So, there is that kind of like balance there of, okay, he's really hesitant and he's gone too far on that side of being hesitant where he doesn't take enough chances or throw enough balls into tight windows as the article said. But at the same time, because he's not forcing those throws, he's not turning the ball over. And, we know when Jalen is forcing throws or taking more shots, he has been prone in the past to turning the ball over. So, it is kind of, what do you want more? Do you want the bigger plays that can come by him pushing the ball downfield, taking, some of these harder throws and trying to fit the ball into tighter windows like the players want? Or what I would assume the coaches want is him being more conservative and not turning the ball over, winning the turnover battle. And if it's ugly, it's ugly. The Eagles still mostly win when they win the turnover battle. So it's definitely a tough thing to try to figure out a balance. I do want him to be a little bit more aggressive, but I am very worrisome that, being overly aggressive can lead to turnovers, and that's how you lose football games. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting and definitely not what I expected. If you would have told me the Eagles were 7-2 going into this Lions game, I don't think I would have expected all this controversy, but here we are.
Lions tonight are without defensive backs Kirby Joseph and Terrion Arnold. They are quite banged up on their defensive side. So, how will the Eagles respond tonight? Are you going to see a lot of A.J. Brown? Are you not going to see a lot of A.J. Brown? Is Jalen Hurts going to throw the ball up more? What are you going to see from this inconsistent seesaw of an Eagles offense tonight?
Yeah, I think that this is going to have to be a game where they're going to have to air it out. The Lions still have, even with these injuries, they still have really good defense this year. So far, they're the 7th total ranked defense in the NFL. Terrion Arnold hasn't really been that great since coming into the league, so he's definitely somebody that could have gotten got. But, obviously, anytime you have to put backup in there, I know there's been some talk that maybe Avonte Maddox is going to have to start for them. We will see. But yeah, the Lions as a whole, it seems like they always have a ton of injuries. So definitely going to have to be a game where we're airing it out. But, I think knowing the Eagles, they're going to play their game. They're going to run the ball. They're going to try to force the running down our throats. But, I think not that you want to play to the Lions game as in, score a lot of points, but I do think that this is one of those games where it's like when you're playing the Chiefs or you're playing the Bills, somebody who can put up points with the best of them, you have to be aggressive. You can't be playing safe. You can't be playing for field goals because that's how you're going to lose games. So I would love to see them take more shots down the field, not necessarily deep balls, but those intermediate routes, and really try to take advantage of those two guys being out. Because, not only is Arnold out, but Kirby Joseph is out. So that means that there's going to be a new safety back there for them. So hopefully try to catch them sleeping a little bit and maybe, plot some balls over their heads.
All right, our trivia question today. I think this is going to be the time I finally stumped one of you two. Back in 2021, there were 7 NFL head coach openings. The only 2 head coaches from that class that have not been fired are Dan Campbell of the Lions and Nick Sirianni of the Eagles. Those 2 face off tonight, and it's very ironic. Those were the 2 that people were trashing the most.
Yeah,
and those are the 2 still with the job and may be the 2 best coaches in the NFL. Name the other 5 teams that had head coach openings in 2021, and if you can, name the hirees. That will not go against your guys' record against me if you can't name all the coaches that were hired, but if you can, that would be very impressive. So we'll come back to the question later. Yes?
So is this if I get more than 50%, it goes as a win, or do I have to nail all of them?
If you can get 3 of the 5 teams, I'll give you guys the win. However, if you get less than 3 of the team, if you can get like the guys that were hired by the team, I'll be able to. All right, here. You need to get 4 of the 5 teams for the win.
Okay. All right.
So you need to get if you don't get 4 of the 5, you need at least 3 of the coach. You need 3 of the hirees to win. So let me put this down. So 4 out of 5 teams. Because this is big. You and Matt, I haven't stumped it. I almost got Matt last week. So 4 of the 5 teams, and then you need 3 of the 5 coaches.
Okay.
So that's for you. If anyone else can answer that, that'd be pretty great. So remember, this is the question. We'll come back to it later. 2021, there were 7 head coach openings. Eagles and Lions, Dan Campbell, Nick Sirianni, the only ones still with jobs. Who were the 5 other teams' openings, and who were the hirees? Sam's going to be thinking about that as we go on, because that's a big question. And something else that was big involving the Eagles was the defense last week. It was a defensive showdown, and if you were, I know some people that weren't able to make it through because it was not the most exciting game, but it was a good old defensive. It wasn't like a defensive battle; it was also like bad offensive. Just not a fun Monday night game. However, the Packers were held to just 261 total yards and 7 points. The Eagles forced 2 turnovers and disrupted Jordan Love all night. Completed just 20 of 36 throws, just 176 yards, no completions for over 25 yards. And everybody was contributing. Jalen Hunt was all over the place. Reed Blankenship, Cooper DeJean, Jalen Phillips. Brandon Graham was in a little bit of it. Everyone was involved on Monday night in Green Bay.
Yeah, it was, obviously their best defensive performance of the year. I think a underrated star from the game was Quinyon Mitchell. Holy moly. He was insane. You said no catches longer than 75 yards. A big reason for that was Quinyon. He, as a second-year player, he is so good at the little things. The knowing the line of how far he can go and what he can get away with, before he gets the pass interference. And he's so fast and he moves so well. He's so sticky to those wide receivers. And obviously the Packers don't have great wide receivers, but he's done it against the best of them. And, I think somebody who was underrated and honestly is underrated a little bit as a player on the team, which is funny because he's, was second in Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. And, obviously Cooper, I think, gets a lot of the hype, but Quinyon is going to be the best cornerback in the league in about probably another year, 2 years, if he's not one of already. He's on pace for a Pro Bowl, All-Pro season. So I wanted to give him a shout out because I thought, no one really talked about the game he played last week, and I thought he was incredible. But yeah, it's amazing when you have defensive line playing the way that our defensive line played last week. It's how much it can just disrupt a game. And early in the season, you saw Vic blitzing out of necessity because we were getting absolutely no pass rush at all. But then, this week he was blitzing, when he wanted to, not because he needed to. So that was great to see. Obviously, that resulted in a fumble on the Kobe. You saw guys getting in the backfield. Jalen Hunt has really turned it on these last couple of games. You mentioned him. And the guys in the middle, Jalen Carter, Moro Jomo. I mean, Jalen Carter, welcome to the 2025 Eagles. I mean, finally. His last couple games, he's played really well. I think, something that's a little bit under talked about with him was that he was dealing with a lot of injuries in training camp. So finally got his legs back under him. And, he's looking like that dominant player again. And, Jalen Phillips, I don't know if he's going to play like that every game. But wow, that looks like a great trade from Howie Roseman. He's looking like somebody we might have to pay this offseason if he's going to keep playing like that. But he's somebody who's been a really good player when he's healthy. It's just a matter of staying healthy. And knock on wood, he can stay healthy the rest of the season. But he was great. And something that was talked about a lot was his pressure rate this season. He's top 15 in pressures this season coming into the being an Eagle. So. Yeah, if this defensive line is going to be playing like this, and we saw it in the Super Bowl last year, obviously that was the most extreme example, but, that's how you win. That's how you win in the playoffs, is getting quarterbacks off their spot. Even the best of them are not good under pressure. So if that defensive line can keep playing like this, it masks a lot of the holes in the secondary. No one talked about Adoree Jackson last week because he wasn't getting tested because they kept getting to Jordan Love. So it's obviously going to be a little bit tougher tonight. I think the Lions offense is just a little bit better than the Packers offense. But, if they can play like that, if the defensive line can play like that again tonight and can replicate it throughout the rest of the season, this defense can really become something really good.
A little note around the NFL. Broncos just walked off the Chiefs, so they get the 22-19 victory in the Broncos are 9-2. Chiefs dropped to 5-5. So just some crazy stuff going on over in the AFC. Jalen Phillips.
Yep. You don't have to give the answer right now, but I think before the show ends, I'll give an update on the Seattle Rams game because that was a huge game for us for playoff implications.
I believe the Rams got the win. I believe I saw that game went final. Yeah, 21-19 Rams came out.
Great for us.
Rams go to 8-2. The Seahawks, who I can't buy into Seattle. If you have Sam Darnold, I just can't buy it. So Seattle drops to 7.
Yeah.
I can't.
That's huge for us because we're the tiebreaker against LA, so that's huge.
Yes, Jalen Phillips, 8 pressures, 7 hurries, 6 tackles, 6 stops, 19.4% pressure rate after just 5 days as a Philadelphia Eagle. He was amazing. Nakobe Dean in his first real game was all over the place. It was fun. It was a lot of fun watching this defense fly around, and Adoree Jackson was excellent. We have not seen a cornerback 2 on the Eagles play like that all season. He's going to get the starting job tonight at CB2. He's going to have a big role tonight, and this could be the Eagles finally get an answer tonight at their cornerback 2 position.
Yeah, definitely. Luckily, not luckily, the Amon-Ra St. Brown, as I know we're going to talk about him here in a second, but he's obviously their best receiver. He moves all around the field. He's going to be moving into the slot. He's going to be moving outside. So for the most part, you would think 90% of the snaps you're going to have either Quinyon or Cooper on St. Brown. So, as long as Adoree can try to lock up Jameson Williams and doesn't let him get past him, hopefully he can play well again today. But yeah, I agree with you. Cornerback 2, I think it was something they neglected in the offseason. Obviously, moving on from Slay was the right move because he's had a really tough year in Pittsburgh. But I didn't think they did enough to fill that hole there. But I think also with the addition of Michael Carter at the deadline, if they need it, Cooper can move outside and Michael Carter can play inside. I think that's why they made that trade. Is pull in case of an emergency kind of lever there, where you move Cooper DeJean outside, you let Michael Carter play the slot, and see what Cooper's got out there. Because if these guys are getting torched again, Cooper can't be any worse. But I would definitely try to avoid that at all costs because the best thing about DeJean is his tackling and taking him on the outside, taking him away from the action, definitely makes you worse on defense. But if these guys are out there just getting cooked tonight, you might have to move some pieces around. Yep,
you said it a little bit earlier. This Lions offense is a lot better than the Packers offense.
Yeah.
This Lions offense stacked.
Yeah.
Jared Goff at quarterback. Let's see. 2,235 yards, 20 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions, and a 68.2 quarterback rating this season. Jahmyr Gibbs is the running back. 128 carries, 693 yards, 8 touchdowns, 5.4 yards per carry. Amon-Ra St. Brown is their wide receiver 1, 64 receptions, 693 yards, 8 touchdowns, averages 11 yards per catch. You got David Montgomery right back behind there, running back 2. You got the kind of a two-headed monster right there. You got Penei Sewell at tackle, who's going to give you an issue. That's a really good offensive line Detroit has. And luckily for the Eagles, Sam Laporta is out. He's on the injured reserve for the Eagles, so that's huge. And Dan Campbell took over play calling a couple weeks ago for Detroit. Vic Fangio and Jordan Davis previewed what the Lions' offense looks like against the Eagles.
Campbell took over play calling last week for Detroit. What changed?
Well, I mean, they had 550 yards, I think, and about half of it was running and half of it was passing. So they were really good. And they got a lot of talent on that side of the ball. They got the best O-line in the league. Quarterback, according to Dan's playing the best that he's ever played. The 2 good running backs. The receivers are all fast. You know, it's a good unit to be calling plays for.
Vic called Detroit's offensive line the best in the league. What are you seeing on tape?
It's not from us.
It's not from you guys.
Yo, okay. But I mean, yeah, like they have a great group up front, well coached. Come on, Noah, don't do that. Did you do an interview today? Oh, okay. But yeah, well coached up front. They play together, which I really love. That's exciting for me personally because I feel like, you know, if people acclaim their offensive line as being the best, we want to play against the best and we want to do our best against the best.
Well, yeah, you want to do it against the best. Let's see if they can do that tonight. Preview some of these matchups. Then we're going to look at our notable matchups in a little bit later. But you know, this is a heavyweight battle. Great defense against great offense. Tonight it's going to be fun.
Yeah, the Lions can score with the best of them. I mean, like you said, Jared Goff, ever since he's come to Detroit, has really turned his career around. You know, first round, number 1 overall pick a couple years ago in that Carson Wentz draft, and you know the Rams, they got rid of him because he kind of folded up in the biggest games, and that's something that we've still seen out of him in the biggest games. He has not played his best, and you know, but he still puts up a lot of numbers. He's got a lot of talent there, and if he has a clean pocket to throw, he is going to pick you apart. The biggest thing always with Jared Goff, and you know, a lot of quarterbacks, but Jared Goff specifically, is if you get pressure to him, he's going to fold. You know, that's when he starts throwing interceptions. That's when he starts taking sacks. That's when he starts making mistakes. So, like we talked about earlier, the Eagles' defensive line is really going to have to get a lot of pressure on him tonight because if not, if he's sitting back in the pocket, clean pocket, thinking and dunking to Amon-Ra and Jahmyr Gibbs, and you know, taking a deep shot to Jameson, it could be a long night for the Eagles defense. And then, you know, I talked about him a little bit, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. You said he's 5th in the NFL in receiving so far this season. 8 touchdowns, second most, with almost 11 yards per catch. He moves all around the field. In 2024, he had 240 snaps from the slot. He moves inside, he moves outside. He's their Swiss Army knife, and he's their best receiver. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Vic wants to play him today. I do think that they will pass him off, meaning if he goes to the slot, let Cooper take him. If he goes outside, have Quinyon follow him. That can obviously be dangerous because then that means you're putting the defense in some bad situations because Jameson Williams can really take the top off of the defense. And then Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, Gibbs is probably the second best running back, or playing like the second best running back in the league right now, second or third, with him, Bijan, and Jonathan Taylor. He's 5th. And he's got the same amount of yards as Amon-Ra rushing, which is really weird. Both at 693, which is 9th in the league. But what makes Gibbs so dangerous is his pass catching ability. I mean, him out of the backfield as a pass catcher, he is unreal. He makes people miss. He can break tackles. You know, I think the biggest thing tonight, and a big reason why I would stay away from moving Cooper outside, is you have to bring him down with your first tackle. You know, if he's getting in space, he's making people miss on these screen passes or, you know, whatever kind of routes he's running. It's going to be a really long night for the defense. So I really would like to keep those guys inside. And, you know, it's going to be a big game from Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, Jihad, if he gets in there. You know, ever since Nakobe has been inserted in the lineup, the run defense has gotten a lot better. So hopefully that can continue tonight. And then you said it too. They got a lot of other guys on offense there. Penny Sewell, their offensive line is really good. Sewell is questionable for tonight's game. I haven't seen the inactives, whether those are out or not. I'm assuming he's going to play, but just something to keep an eye on. And then, like you said, they got Sonic and Knuckles back there with David Montgomery too. A little bit more of a bruiser back. He's the guy on the short yardage, and he can be dangerous as well. So yeah, I mean they got a really good offense. It's really hard to stop, but if there's one player that can get got, I think it's Jared Goff with a lot of pressure. So they need to get to him early and often for sure.
Eagles lining up in warm-ups. They have Cooper DeJean in the slot. Quinyon Mitchell and Adoree Jackson are on the outside. So that's how the Eagles are lining up in warm-ups. And we get into the inactives tonight. For the Eagles, their quarterback 3 will be Sam Howell, along with Mac McWilliams, A.J. Dillon, Drew Kendall, and Ty Robinson. So same list as we have seen for the Eagles, the usual guys. For Detroit, Laporta is not on this list because he is on the IR, but he is not playing. So along with cornerback Terrion Arnold, defensive lineman Quentin Jefferson, safety Kirby Joseph, wide receiver Tom Kennedy, running back Craig Reynolds, and defensive lineman Mekhi Wingo. So the big guys we had spoken about with Detroit there, but nothing that we are surprised about.
Yeah.
We knew everything else that was going to be happening. All right, Sam, what are your notable matchups tonight? Big one tonight. Is this the biggest regular season Eagles game since? It's been a while since we've had a big one.
Definitely since the San Francisco game. I gotta say, and especially with playoff implications. I mean, the Lions obviously are down 1 in the loss column here, but that can be evened out tonight. So with this is a big playoff implications. The Eagles, like we talked about with that Rams, they've beaten the Rams, they've beaten the Lions, hopefully beat the Lions, knock on wood, beaten the Packers, beaten the Buccaneers. So a lot of teams that are going to be fighting for that 1 seed if the Eagles can get the tiebreaker against. That would be huge. But my 2 notable matchups for tonight's game, my first one is Vic Fangio versus Dan Campbell. You mentioned it earlier. Dan Campbell took over play calling last week for the Detroit Lions, and they hung over 40 points on the Washington Commanders. Notable, the Washington Commanders stink, but also interesting to see that Dan Campbell was able to call a game where his offense scored over 40 points. Hopefully, Vic Fangio can take advantage of, while a very good head coach, a very inexperienced play caller. So that'll be definitely very interesting matchup to watch between the two of them and see how Campbell's adjustments as a play caller go going on in the game. And obviously Vic doesn't have a lot of tape on Campbell as a play caller, so that'll be a really interesting matchup to watch. And then my last one is the Eagles edge rushers versus the Lions tackles. Both Sewell and Decker are, obviously we know they're going to be playing, but they were both questionable for the game, so that means that they're not going to be 100%. Eagles have to take advantage of that, and we really need their edge rushers to get to the quarterback. Talked about it before. Jared Goff historically really folds when he's under pressure, and I think that's the key to win this game tonight is getting pressure on Jared Goff and letting him make mistakes. So the Eagles edge rushers really need to take advantage of 2 tackles not playing at 100% tonight.
All right, now it is time for our SeatGeek standout stars. SeatGeek, they are the best. We all know it. Make sure to go over, download the app, use code Phillies Sports Report, save $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Phillies Sports Report, you save $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Sam, give me a couple of SeatGeek standout stars. Who's going to be standing out big time tonight for a possible Eagles victory?
Yeah, so I got 2 standout stars for today's game. My first one is somebody we haven't really talked about except for just a few words, but that's Jalen Carter. I think coming on these last couple of weeks after the bye week, obviously getting some time to let all those injuries heal, he has really played himself into shape and has been playing a lot better. I think last week was obviously the best game that he has played. He had those 2 batted balls. He was in the quarterback's face. And on that critical 4th down play, while Moro Ojomo was the one who called it out, Jalen Carter absolutely blew up that play. He got off the line so fast, beat his guy, made Josh Jacobs move to the outside, which led him right into Jalen Phillips' arms. So, I think when a play needs to be made, we need to look to big number 98 in the middle. And I think that he's going to have a good game today and take advantage of a new offensive lineman there because their offensive lineman retired last year in Ragnow. And then Devontae Smith. I think Devontae is having the best year of his career so far, which is funny because the passing game has been such a topic of conversation in a negative way, but Devontae has really succeeded this year. And I just think historically Devontae in the biggest games always comes up big. When you think of big catches that have been made for this team in big games, I mean, I think about the NFC Championship game in 2022. Devontae Smith makes that big catch. The Super Bowl in 2022, Devontae Smith, leading receiver, tons of big catches. Even this year, a lot of the big plays have been by Devontae Smith. 2024 Super Bowl, the dagger, Devontae Smith. He is somebody who plays the best in big games. And I think that obviously the Lions have heard all the comments and the conversation around A.J. Brown. So they're going to really, they think that the Eagles are going to try to force A.J. Brown the ball, which is going to lead to double coverage. Not that A.J. doesn't get double coverage all the time, but I think it's going to be even more leaving Devontae Smith one-on-one with backup cornerbacks, which that is a recipe for success for Devontae Smith. So I think he's going to continue his great season so far, and I think he's going to have another good game today.
Devontae Smith has been like a savior for the Eagles, and Saquon Barkley said it this week. People forget that he won a Heisman, and it is so rare for wide receivers to win Heisman trophies. And he's so blown under the radar because Jalen Hurts can't throw a deep ball, and he's also on an offense with A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley. But Devontae Smith is an all-class talent, and he voiced some frustrations last week, but he's also been able to kind of keep things in-house as well. So you have a lot of respect for a guy like that. Along with Jalen Carter, when he turned it on, so did the Eagles defense. Like, it feels like when he's going, the defense is also going.
Yeah, the guys in the middle are the ones that run the defense. I mean, you go all the way up the middle. Defensive tackles, linebackers, safeties. I mean, those guys really have a big impact on the game. And when you're getting interior pressure like that, I mean, if you looked at the game last week and you were looking at Jalen Phillips rushing the passer, something to look at. He was just going against the right tackle. He didn't have double coverage because the double teams are coming to Jalen Carter. So when he's playing that way and he's going to be demanding double teams, it allows everyone else on the outside. I don't think it's a coincidence that the best game that Jalen Carter played of the season, Jalen Hunt had a sack. Jalen Phillips was in the backfield, and then Jacoby Dean was able to rush right in behind him. And I think with Devontae too, it's weird because it feels like he's been here forever, but he really hasn't been. He was drafted in 2021, and it's only his fourth year in the league. And when you look at him in college, while he had that game-winning catch in the national championship, it did take him a few years to really kind of shine there. And I just think he's really coming into his own as a really good receiver in the NFL. It's still on his rookie contract, which is wild when you think about it. Because, like I said, I feel like he's been here forever. But not that he wasn't a really good player in the beginning. I mean, he had almost 1,200 yards in 2022, and has been a really, really good player for the Eagles. But I think he's starting to take his game to the next level, and the sky's the limit for him. I mean, like you said, his resume speaks for itself.
Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring the SeatGeek Standout Stars. Now it's time for for Sam's locks of the game. We got an even line. Eagles -1.5. They get that points because they're the home team, over under 47.5. And Sam's got some other things. Give it to me, Sam. What do we got?
Yeah, this line is really interesting. Normally, teams get about 2.5 for being home. So this is about as dead even as it can be. I do like the Eagles in this game. I would stay away from betting the spread. I would just bet money line on this game on whoever you think's going to win, because that low of a spread is always tricky. Over under, I have this game going over, not by too much, but I do think it's going to go over. I think there's going to be a decent amount of points put up in this game. I always do it. I do it every week. Whoever my standout star is, if it's an offensive player, I back him with a little bit of money. So I have Devontae Smith over. His over-under for the game is 57.5 receiving yards. He has been the Eagles' leading receiver by far this season. And in a lot of the games, he's eclipsed 100 a bunch of times. He came close to 100 last week. So I think that's an easy over number for Devontae Smith. And then Tank Bigsby. Last week, they used way too much Will Shipley. No offense, Will Shipley. We all like you, but you do not need to be on the field and getting that many touches as you did last week. especially after the game Tank had right before the bye. His over/under for yards. Let's see if you can. Let's see if you have an idea. What do you think Tank Bigsby's over/under in rushing yards is today?
5.5.
8.5. So pretty good guess. Even at 8.5,
That's
love
still,
it.
yeah.
That's one run. That is one run. Hopefully, they're going to give him the ball instead of Will Shipley. Honestly, hopefully they never run a coward draw again because it makes me want to punch my TV every single time I see it. But if they're going to run it, at least give it to Tank over Will.
Yeah, this 1.5 line really has me feeling like they are favoring Detroit. So I'm whipping it out today. Underdog's going to eat tonight. Tank Bigsby going to work. So there we go. We're dogs tonight.
I mean, technically, you get 2 to 2.5 for being home, so they think Detroit's slightly better.
Yeah, that fades me. And I feel like you're kind of an underdog with this question this week, so you might want to whip that shirt back up. I got a tough one for you. We're going to go back to the trivia question. Here we go. It's coming up on the screen. There were 5 head coach job openings outside of the Eagles and Lions, so 7, but outside of the Eagles and Lions, 5 head coach openings in the year 2021. We'll start with the teams. Can you name me the 5 teams that had openings?
All right. So not 5, but I have Chargers, Jags, Falcons, Jets.
All right. Can you name me the 5th? Think.
No, I had no idea. So I knew the coaches. That was how I knew the coaches, then the teams, because you can put that together. But I could not, for the life of me, think of these other guys. And the only reason I knew this is because I remember, the Eagles had just come off the Super Bowl and being really invested in trying to figure out who's going to be this Eagles' next head coach. And I remember all these guys just kept coming off the board right before, because the Eagles took so long to fire Doug Peterson. And they really were left with not a lot of options. So I remember a lot of these guys, and I remember there being a lot of teams, and I remember the only reason I remember this is because I remember the coaches all being talked about for the Eagles, and they didn't get any of them, and I'm obviously very glad that they didn't get any of these guys. But I cannot for the life of me think of who the last team was.
All right, the last team was the Houston Texans. Was the other team. So the Jaguars, the Jets, the Falcons, the Chargers, and the Texans. Now, can you name how many coaches, how many hirees can you name?
So this is how I knew it, because I remembered the coaches being in talks, some of these guys being in talks with the Eagles or whatever, and then I, remember them being fired. So I have Brandon Staley for the Chargers. That guy stunk. Urban Meyer for the Jags. Disaster. Arthur Smith for the Falcons. Yep. I remember him because his dad started FedEx. I was like, that guy's, we don't need him on the Eagles because everyone's going to call him a rich guy and he's not silly enough. And then Robert Saleh for the Jets.
Yes, and then the Texans hire was David Culley.
No, never. I don't even think I've heard of that.
I
don't remember that guy at all.
Say you guys win again. There's your applause. I'm a loser again.
That's a good question, though. It made me think. It made me think. But I
got put out this week, and I thought it would be a good question. So there we go. So there are your answers. Hopefully somebody in the chat got it as well. As we are 19 minutes away from kickoff, we're going to show off what we're wearing with the Foco Fit Check. Real fans need the best gear. Foco's got it. Head over there. Get your gear. Link is in the description or the bio. Sam's throwing it back tonight.
Yeah. So I'm starting off with a hat that I actually got today. The only reason I'm wearing it because it doesn't match my jersey at all. But Mitchell and Ness did a drop where they did a camo retro Eagles hat. I'm going wrong on the camera. Camo retro Eagles hat. Me and my friend made a trip over the bridge to pick one up, so I had to debut it on the show tonight. But the real reason is the jersey today. I'm wearing the 75th anniversary Brian Dawkins jersey that they wore in 2007, and I'm wearing this for a very specific reason. The team that the Philadelphia Eagles beat wearing these jerseys in 2007 was the Detroit Lions. They won that game 56-21. So I'm hoping that we can get some good luck by wearing this jersey again, beating the Lions again. And it's the ugliest jersey I own, but it's probably one of my prized possessions because it's super rare. But I had somebody in line at Mitchell and Ness ask me what team that was today. I said, look on the back, it's Brian Dawkins, and they couldn't believe that it was even an Eagles jersey. But hopefully it brings us some good luck and we can beat the Lions with it again.
The Eagles have a long history of beating the Detroit Lions. You go back to the 1995 wildcard game at the Vet. It was a 58-37 beatdown of the Lions. Had a 31-point second quarter that night. So that was a lot of history with the Eagles and the Lions. But the Eagles typically are the ones coming out on top because the Lions in the past have not been a very good franchise. I'm going with my black Jalen Hurts. I think this is the first time I've worn it all year.
Nice.
So, the offense needs some help. So I'm going to try to give it to them. And that's where I'm going with Jalen Hurts.
I'm a little disappointed they're not wearing the blacks tonight. But if they don't wear them Black Friday, use this opportunity. They have to wear them Black Friday.
It's like a thing. Like you're pulling a Black Friday. You got to wear black uniforms on Black Friday.
Yeah, they better be.
I would have liked them to wear against the Giants, but it seems like they're only wearing them once now. So I guess
if it's not Black Friday, then just throw the uniforms out, even though I love them. But we got two good. Assuming they're going to wear them Black Friday, we got Kelly Green next week in Dallas. That'll be awesome. And then we got the Black Friday game. So two good uniforms coming up.
Yeah, a lot of good. Well, the Eagles always have good uniforms, but a little bit of some special ones coming out over the next 2 weeks. All right, Sam. Thank you to Foco. What are your keys to an Eagles victory tonight over the Detroit Lions? Keeping the beating of Detroit going, although the Sixers didn't do it on Friday, but it is what it is.
Oh, don't remind me. So first key to the game I have is get off to a hot start. The Lions are going to be revved up, hyped up, ready to go for this game. We talked about it. They've been waiting for this game for a year and a half. They have so much motivation for this game. They think that Super Bowl last year, if it wasn't for injuries, would have been theirs. And, quick thing on the injuries. I think there's a reason why the Detroit Lions get injured so often. Dan Campbell pushes them to the limit. And every year, there's so many injuries. Maybe the Wild might want to start putting two of them together. But either way, Detroit Lions are going to come out, want to punch the Eagles in the mouth. The Eagles have to do it to them. Get off this hot start. And if you get down to this team, it's really hard to come back against them just because there's so much offensive firepower and they can play with the lead. So I need to get off to a hot start tonight offensively. Maybe get a turnover on defense, whatever it is, and take that Lions punch and punch them right back. And then we talked about it all show. Normally when I have a key, I like to work it in a lot to the show, and it's get pressure on Jared Goff. Like I said, in the biggest games, he hasn't played his best. But if he's going to have a clean pocket, he is going to sit back there and just absolutely pick you apart. So the Eagles need to get pressure on him. They need these new edge rushers, old edge rushers, all these guys, Brandon Graham, Jalen Phillips, blitz at the right time. They need these guys to get pressure on Jared Goff, let him make mistakes. And if you do that, I think you win this game.
All right, it is time for our predictions. Throw your predictions in the chat. I whipped out the dog mask. I'm going to put it back on. Eagles get a huge win tonight over the Detroit Lions. It's going to be close. I can't see a thing. What did I write down? 27-23. Eagles come out on top.
All right, I'm very close. I like that score. I have the Eagles winning tonight's game 20-24. It's going to be an absolute nail biter. It's going to be one that's going to make you want to rip your hair out at times. But in the end, I think the Eagles do what they do. They pull out a close, ugly game, and they move to 8-2, 9-2, 8-2. And we talked about it earlier. I mean, this is a huge game. Obviously the whole Lions and a couple of the best teams in the NFC, but the Eagles have wins over a lot of the best teams in the NFC. The Rams, the Bucks, the Packers. Now, they have the tiebreaker against a lot of these teams. Winning this game tonight would be huge for the Eagles' chance of going for the 1 seed. And that's what we got to start looking at now. We got to find the path to the 1 seed, and I think tonight would be a huge step towards that.
All right, that is going to do it for our Eagles pregame show brought to you by SeatGeek. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Head over to games on NBC kicking off at 8:20. And we want to thank SeatGeek for sponsoring the show and the SeatGeek stars, along with Foco, for sponsoring our Fit check out sports.com post-game with Sam Heine's recap and throughout the week for Eagles coverage, and check out Philly Sports throughout the game as we will live tweet it. And as every game, every news, every sport, just go check it out. Thank you all for coming on in. We'll see you next week. Go Birds!
Go Birds!